everybody. I hope you guys are doing well. This is going to be another quick one, but I'm hoping that you guys are doing okay. And in general, I'm just trying to rush because I gotta go look for my wallet because I think I left it at the park. So, this won't be long. Just wanted to kind of just give a little ditty to my fellow conservatives. I have another video to my fellow Democrats. Kind of just talking about how things are going. Because when we think of America, I like to think of a place where we band together regardless of our differences. I mean, yes, we have a lot of faults, we have a lot of grievances, but in a way, we all have made mistakes. We've all made pitfalls in every generation, and we have to deal with ourselves generation to generation. Ask ourselves, what is it that the majority is doing, and what is it that we should be doing? We should be fighting for a sense of historical progress or causal progression for humanity. And when the founders created this nation, they made it very clear that that every American plays a part in the course of human events. And that's a key phrase, especially when it's linked to the concept of a creator. That there is a creator and that he is watching the progress of humanity and he's taking notes. He's watching, the universe is watching, the world is watching us as we grow. So who are we? What are we trying to be? So conservatives, I ask you all to, look inside and ask yourselves, what is America? What makes you think of America? Sorry, I'm tired, so I'm hitting a bunch of wrong things. Probably actually going to reshoot this, but anyways. We have to ask ourselves, what is it that the conservative leadership is actually fighting for? I'm not talking about Trump. I'm talking about those who have gone out of their way to propel Trump into the leadership, but also are willing and able to elect another Republican representative. When people elected Trump, and this is talking to conservatives, so if you're not conservative, you might not understand this, but when we elected Trump, we asked ourselves, what is it that the Republican leadership is lacking? And we thought that they lacked a sense of willpower. We felt that they were cowards in a lot of ways, that they were willing to give the appearance of fighting, but in reality, they would kowtow and cave on most issues that were actually fundamental to the course of what this nation was going to become. That they gave the basin of defense, but really it was just a false flag. And so when we elected Trump, we wanted somebody who would shake up the foundations of the Republican establishment. We wanted to reform the Republican Party away from this traditionalist model of we don't get involved unless it's something that intrudes on the functioning of this nation. Instead, we wanted the conservatives to get involved in the social issues of this nation. We wanted conservatives to start having more of a say in the public discourse on where this nation's going with its population and with its sense of unity in terms of what it means to be an American. And for us, a large part of our populism comes from an anti-globalist model. Not a, fascist model, not an anti-immigrant model. No, it's anti-globalist. We don't have a problem with immigrants. We have a problem with immigrants being forced into our nation from the UN because we don't trust the UN, and we don't trust that the UN honestly wants us at our high strength. They want our money, they want our power, but they don't want us to be able to actually have a say in the affairs of the United Nations. And that's something that's wrong, and they should be held accountable for that. The United Nations manipulates the way that we look at health, the environment, ourselves, our governance, our sovereignty, and that matters to conservatives. But does it matter to our leadership? And I don't think it does. Because when we look at people like, Neil Gorsuch, or when we look at people like, George W. Bush, when we look at them, we see that they have always been against Trump. There's always been kind of a begrudging acceptance of the man. And so it's been clear to us since the very beginning in 2016 that Trump is a temporary thing. That we are not conservatives, but we are conserving what we can of this union at a point where we feel like it is more necessary than anything. And I think that's why Trump had more support from libertarians and liberals than most people were expecting in the first election. And I think it'll be the same for this next one. Because a lot of people have been lied to. They said that it's only just a small step, and then reality shakes, and then we find out that our entire society has changed around us to the point where we don't recognize each other. We only see enemies. So, the warning that I have for conservative leadership, for us as conservatives, about the conservative leadership at least, I should say, is let us not forget that worse than the wolves and the thieves, those that we see out there in the other parties, are the false prophets. Those who say that they wish to conserve something. Those who wish to say that they are traditionalists. Those who use the title of conservative, but have no desire to conserve or to protect anything. They don't even defend the idea that America has something that has been redeemed in it. And I think that that's a great flaw and a shame on the Conservative Party. America has paid for its sins. And it continues to pay for its sins. We all pay for the sins of this nation throughout our lives. And we all contribute to the redemption of this nation if we choose to. It's when we choose not to that the nation is submitted to outer darkness and spiritual blindness. And so the men of this world who impose as men of God, with the intention of deceiving those who wish to strive for the will of Christ, those are the people we must fear. For those leaders are those, and there are those on the left, but we're focusing on the right, especially since we're considered the religious party. It is those who do not wish to actually build and reform and to actually bring a reclamation of this nation's heart so that we can stop these suicides. We could stop the desire for abortion rather than just banning abortions. I would rather make people desire to not have abortions because their sexual behavior and their views towards how to form relationships have changed. We should be looking at changing hearts and minds, not establishing policies. The policies are just the stepping stones to protect ourselves, to allow us to be able to evangelize and to help people in the way that we know best biblically. But that is only a stepping stone. It is not the idol that we wish it to be. And so, in America, we must be active and alert to the behavior and transitions of the various sects of the political and social left. Yet there is still a concern about the sects of the right. We have to ask ourselves, not about the white supremacists. They don't matter. They're a minority. They're a percentage. Again, you can take a percentage of 1 million. That's still a pretty large 1,000 people. Either way, 1% is still a large number of people. So you can make any group worse, which is the interjection of 1% of foul elements of toxicity into that element. That's why hate, Martin Luther King made it clear, hate cannot be in any aspect of a protest. Even if it is getting to the point where it is violent, it cannot be violent because of hate. You should be fighting the officer because you want to protect him from himself. And that sounds weird, but maybe we'll go into that in a future video. But the general point is that we need to ask ourselves, what's going on behind Trump? Obama said his whole entire career that, he was being roadblocked by the conservatives, but having seen that Trump was being roadblocked by the left the entire time, and I do not believe conservatives have a sense of power over the government. I think that it's been opportunistic displays of power, but not that they've been in power. In fact, I think that the left has been in power for the last 8 years, maybe even 12 years, influencing the right to be these boogeymen that they've become. And I think the right's okay with being those boogeymen. They're okay with being the straw men that they are. But we are not the conservative leadership. We are the conservative base. And more importantly, we are the conservatives, not our leaders. We can serve, not them. They do our will. We act out what we wished for the world to do. So we live the lives that we want our leaders to go and basically communicate to the rest of the world. It might be the best way for us to go as a society. Not this environment where we do as we must, we take what we will, and we consume, and build ourselves out a little mountain of gold like smog, but instead, where we build a loving and united community, where all races are joined together, and we've decided to leave aside our differences and to grow. We have to look to our nature, our environment, our societies, and ask ourselves, what are the habits that we are allowing our peers and our loved ones to adapt and to be okay with? And is that really what we want for ourselves? So the grand lie of the right is that we are moral because every single one of us is righteous, and that because all of us are righteous, we are fit to trust our leaders. I trust Trump largely because of the evidence that I've shown in a couple of videos before. I've seen him during the prayer conventions. I've seen him pray around minorities. I've seen him have minorities pray around him from the very beginning, before he was even elected. So I've known that Trump has always been surrounded by minority support. I've known that Trump has always been surrounded by significant evangelical support, and not just the evangelicals that are in it for money, but those who genuinely want reformation for this country. And in my personal conversations with people around the different parts of the state that I visited, and also in different parts of the country, I think there's a general hope that Trump, at the very least, is more liberal than our conservative leaders were, and that he is more conservative than any Democratic leader would be willing to even nudge towards. Because everybody's so far in the center that at this point left, that center is fascist at this point. But I think that that's why we need to be stronger. I think that's why we need to be different. Because we are new Republicans. We're not of this old cast. We are not neocons. We are not in it because of the party. Lincoln created this party, but he did not create this party to become an idol by which the Union then aligns itself on this vague concept of what makes America great. What makes America great is that America sees its flaws, it fights to right them, and then it lets people go. And it doesn't blame their children for the sins of their fathers. And the mothers are able to have children who can be free of the burdens of their parents. I do not want my children playing a part in this hell that is going on around this country. My children may be mixed race, but they do not have to live their life asking themselves which side I support. I will not let my children live a life that I have been forced to live against my will. And continue to be forced to live against my will. And there are so many other conservatives who are tired of this. And if we are tired of it, then let us act as it. We are shedding the bonds of race or creed or whatsoever. And we form together on the values of we are all created equal by a creator and endowed with undeniable, inalienable rights that we must champion and defend. And as conservatives of that creed, we built a nation by which all who come here lose their genetics and phenotypical differences and instead are bonded together on their common zeal to live the dream. The dream of having life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, whether that's property, freedom of expression, freedom of religion, or freedom of life. But we are not to champion death. We are not to champion escape from our consequences. We are to champion accountability and social responsibility, the contract between us and the Creator and us and ourselves that unite these territories called states, these regions with their different constitutions, their different, civic codes, into one union. And we fought for that union. And those who separated from that union did so because they felt that a federalized government would not respect the rights of individual states. And that is something that we fight for as well. We don't just fight for the concept of right, but we fight for also the left. We fight to protect the left from themselves. And we have to conserve them as well. We cannot let them continue to drift away and radicalize against us. We are not their enemies. They are not ours. We must bring each other together. Doesn't mean we join them. We put a line in the ground and we tell them to meet us at it. And we will hash out our differences there. We do not cave to them. We do not cave to the left. And we should not cave to the left anymore because they have lied to us for too long. and continue to use us as chattel just to get votes. They'll say anything they want to us. We cannot be like that, but we also cannot be destroyers. We are reclaimers, redeemers. That's what it means to conserve. To redeem the past from the dark shade and shadows that it once was by shining a light on it and getting rid of what was wrong, admitting to what was wrong, and repenting, and then moving on. Not paying reparations, not beating people to death, not reforming the Constitution or reforming our law enforcement, but building unity and actually coming up with reforms that work with what we got towards the future. Stay blessed, Shepherd.